You weren't born to be a prisoner of your own thoughts. But somewhere along the way, the noise in your mind grew louder than your purpose. The doubts, the fears, the lies you've been repeating to yourself, they've taken root. And worse, they've convinced you that you are them. But listen carefully. You are not your thoughts. You are the man who can choose what to believe, what to reject, and what to rebuild from the ashes. This is not just another motivational video. This is a call to reclaim your inner authority, to step out of the shadows of hesitation and into the quiet power of discipline and clarity. Today, you will learn how to rewire your mind, defeat negative thoughts, and take back control using the battle-tested philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. This isn't about escaping pain or pretending everything's okay. It's about facing discomfort head-on and forging strength because of it. You don't need more comfort, you need conviction. You need to train your mind like a warrior, sharpen your focus, and stop letting weakness wear the mask of reason. If you're ready to rise, to lead yourself again, to stop waiting and start owning, this is for you. If this message speaks to you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this right now. The war is within, but so is your victory. 1. Recognize that you are not your thoughts. You wake up with a weight in your chest, and you can't explain why. Nothing happened, no one said anything, but something's off. You drag yourself through the day, your mind playing the same old soundtrack. You're not enough. You always mess things up. You're too far behind to catch up now. These thoughts don't whisper, they roar, and yet you keep moving, assuming they must be true. But what if I told you those voices in your head aren't facts? They're just noise. And worse, they're not even your own. You've inherited them from years of conditioning, failure, shame, and silence. The problem isn't that you think negatively. The problem is that you've forgotten that you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are like clouds, shifting, unstable, and sometimes dark. But you are not the storm. You are the sky. And the moment you confuse the two, you lose your power. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He ruled an empire, yet he battled intrusive thoughts every single day. But he wrote them down, exposed them to daylight, and reminded himself they held no weight unless he allowed it. That's what makes a Stoic different. He doesn't pretend that the darkness doesn't come. He just doesn't bow to it. Too many men live as if every passing fear is a prophecy. They say, "I'm anxious," when they mean, "I'm having anxious thoughts." They say, "I'm broken," when they mean, "I feel broken today." But that shift in language is everything. It's the line between being controlled and being in command. Because when you identify with every emotion that arises, you surrender the only battlefield that matters, the one inside your mind. Now let's flip the script. Picture a soldier in a war zone. Bullets fly past him, explosions thunder nearby, but he doesn't flinch. Why? Because he's trained to observe without reacting. He doesn't mistake noise for danger. He responds with intention. Your thoughts are no different. They are signals, not commands. And your power lies in the space between the thought and your decision to follow it or not. So here's where it becomes real. The next time a negative thought shows up, don't fight it. Don't feed it. Just name it. Say to yourself, "I'm noticing the thought that I'm not good enough." That one sentence creates space, and space is everything. It breaks the trance. It gives you a split second of awareness that says, wait, maybe this isn't the truth. Maybe this is just a storm passing through. You've been reacting for years, but the reaction is weakness. Recognition is power. That's the beginning of rewiring your mind. Not through willpower alone, but through awareness, presence, and self-command. You don't have to believe every story your mind tells. You can write new ones, starting now. Because the Stoic doesn't eliminate thought. He simply refuses to kneel before it. So today, stand up inside your own head. Take back the pen and write what you choose to believe. 2. Observe before you react. The pause principle. You don't rise or fall based on what happens around you. You rise or fall based on what you do the moment after. That tiny space between trigger and response, that's where your life is shaped. Most men lose that battle not because they're weak, but because they've never been trained to pause. You've been told that reacting fast is a strength, that expressing how you feel without a filter is honesty. But that's a lie built for emotional children, not men with purpose. The Stoics knew better. They believed that true power was not in dominance, but in restraint. And nowhere is that clearer than in the principle of the pause. Imagine a man standing at the edge of a cliff, wind howling, the ground unstable. One wrong move and he's gone. That's what it feels like when you're triggered. But a trained mind doesn't flinch. He steps back. He plants his weight. He assesses. Because of reacting on instinct, that's how you lose control. That's how you say things you regret, make choices you can't take back, and spiral deeper into a storm that started inside your head. You're not just here to feel. You're here to decide what to do with what you feel. Stoicism doesn't tell you to suppress emotion. It teaches you to discipline it. Epictetus wrote that we are not disturbed by events, but by our opinions about them. That means the power isn't in what she said, what they did, or what life threw your way. It's in how you frame it. But to reframe anything, you need a moment of stillness, a moment most men never take. They lash out, withdraw, and numb themselves with distraction. And each time they do, they give away more of their mind. So, how do you train this pause? You start by becoming aware of the moment your body tightens, your voice rises, and your pulse accelerates. That's the signal. Don't suppress it. Don't obey it either. Just hold it. Breathe. 3 seconds of silence can change a lifetime of bad patterns. You don't need to know exactly what to say or do next. You just need to stop the autopilot. And in that stillness, clarity shows up. You might realize it's not worth your energy. You might respond with calm instead of chaos. You might walk away and win. No one's asking you to be emotionless. But if you want to lead, to protect, to build something that lasts, you need to stop being a slave to your reactions. Every strong man you admire has mastered the pause, not by accident, but by practice. The world doesn't reward the loudest man in the room. It rewards the one who knows when not to speak, when to wait, and when to act with precision. Next time the fire rises in you, don't rush to throw fuel on it. Step back, let it burn without burning you. That's not weakness, that's warriorship. And it starts with the pause. 3. Reframe the narrative internally. There's a story running in your head. It plays quietly, like background music you've heard so many times you forget it's even there. It says you're not good enough, that you always fall short, that people don't respect you, that you never had what it takes, and maybe never will. This story doesn't shout, but it shapes your posture, your choices, and your relationships. And most dangerously, it feels like the truth. But here's the reality. It's not the truth. It's a script. And it was written long before you had the strength to question it. Every man walks around with a version of this, and most never stop to ask where it came from. A father's silence, a failed relationship, a mistake you made when you were 20, or worse, a belief handed to you by someone who never lived a day with courage. But you've been repeating their story for years, and now it's yours. That's the trap. That's why you feel stuck. Not because your life can't change, but because the voice in your head insists it won't. The Stoics knew how dangerous that voice was. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not because he needed motivation, but because he needed to rewrite the internal dialogue. To remind himself that power lies not in circumstances, but in interpretation. You don't change by waiting for better things to happen. You change by telling better stories about who you are and what you're capable of. Now imagine this. You're standing in front of a mirror, and for once, you don't see your failures, your flaws, or the years you think you've wasted. You see a man in the middle of transformation. You say to yourself, I'm improving, not I'm broken. You say I'm becoming stronger, not I've always been weak. That switch doesn't make the pain disappear, but it gives you leverage, it gives you momentum, and it gives you ownership over the voice you once obeyed without question. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about refusing to repeat a lie someone else wrote for you. When your mind says, I always mess things up, you say, I've survived worse and I'm learning. When it says, I'm not built for this, you say, then I'll build myself piece by piece. Each time you shift the narrative, even slightly, you reclaim ground. You chip away at the old foundation and pour something new, something earned into its place. You reframe with your words, but you reinforce it with your actions. That means showing up, even when you don't feel ready. It means doing one more rep, one more hour, one more uncomfortable conversation. Because each time you act against the old story, you make the new one real. And that's how you rewire your mind, not by waiting for inspiration, but by living like the man you're becoming, even when no one's watching. Especially then. Rewrite the script, say it out loud, and live in a way that makes it true. 4. Focus only on what you can control. Every man has a breaking point. For some, it comes quietly, when they're alone in traffic, gripping the wheel while life feels like it's slipping out of their hands. For others, it shows up in a meeting, in a fight with someone they love, or in the stillness of a sleepless night. The pattern is always the same. Something happens, expectations collapse, and suddenly you spiral. Your mind scrambles for answers, for someone to blame, for something to fix. But nothing changes. Because what you're trying to fix is beyond your reach. That's where suffering grows, in the space between what you want and what you can't control. You've been taught that control means power, that if you push hard enough, grind long enough, force people and outcomes to bend, you'll find peace. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, had no illusions about control. He couldn't control war, betrayal, disease, or death. But he knew there was one battlefield that was his alone. His thoughts, his judgments, his choices. That's where power lives. Not in chasing outcomes, but in mastering your response. Right now, you may be angry that things haven't turned out how you planned. You may feel like life owes you more. But anger at the world won't fix it. Worrying won't move you forward. You can't control the markets, your past, your boss, or the people who left. But you can control what you think, what you say, and what you do. That's where your strength begins, when you stop wasting energy on the wind and start adjusting your sails. Imagine standing in a storm. The rain pours, the wind howls, the sky cracks open with fury. You can scream at the clouds, or you can brace yourself, find shelter, and keep walking. Complaining doesn't calm the storm. Action does. That's what Stoicism teaches. That peace is not found in still waters, but in the ability to remain steady when the waves rise. Too many men lose years fighting battles that were never theirs to win. They try to change people who don't want to change. They dwell on betrayals they can't undo. They carry the weight of regret like a chain across their chest. But regret is a story about yesterday, and you don't live there anymore. The man who wants to rise doesn't ask, "Why did this happen?" He asks, "What can I do now?" Here's how you start. The next time something outside your control happens, pause. Ask yourself 2 questions. Is this mine to change? Is this mine to carry? If the answer is no, then let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't belong to you. That shift is not weakness, it's precision, and a precise man is a powerful one. You don't need to fix the world, you need to command yourself. And that begins by choosing what gets your attention and what doesn't. 5. Practice cognitive distancing. You are not what you think. But most men live as if every thought that enters their mind is a command, a verdict, a sentence. They wake up and feel unmotivated, so they label themselves lazy. They feel anxious and call themselves weak. They make a mistake and declare themselves a failure. But you are not your passing emotions. You are not your worst day. You are not even your most persistent doubts. You are the one observing all of it. And if you forget that, you become trapped in an identity you never chose. A prison made not of steel, but of stories you keep telling yourself. This is where cognitive distancing begins. It's the mental discipline of stepping back from your thoughts, not to ignore them, but to see them clearly. The Stoics practiced this every day. Epictetus didn't pretend he had no anger or fear. He simply refused to believe that those emotions had the right to speak as truth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that thoughts are like visitors. They enter your home, but you don't have to serve them dinner. You don't have to let them stay the night. You especially don't have to give them your name. But the modern world tells you otherwise. It tells you your feelings are your identity. If you feel broken, then you are. That if you feel unworthy, it must be true. This is why most men never grow. They cling to their pain like armor, not realizing it's what's weighing them down. Cognitive distancing breaks that pattern. It gives you space, and space is where clarity lives. Imagine being in a movie theater, watching a film about your worst fears. You feel the anxiety, you want to look away, but then someone reminds you, you're not in the movie, you're just watching it. That moment changes everything. Because once you know it's just a screen, you stop reacting. You start thinking, your heart slows down, your breath returns, you gain perspective. That's what happens when you detach from your thoughts. You stop being the actor and become the director. So how do you practice this in real life? It starts with language. Replace "I'm a failure" with "I'm having a thought that I've failed." Replace "I can't do this" with "I'm noticing the belief that this is too hard." These may sound like small shifts, but they're massive. They're psychological levers that move you from identification to observation. And once you can observe, you can choose. You're no longer a hostage, you're a strategist. The battlefield isn't your mind, it's your reaction to your mind. And if you want to build strength, you need to stop grabbing every thought like it's a weapon and start examining it like a tool. Is this thought helping you? Is it true? Is it useful? Or is it just noise? You don't need to destroy every negative idea. You just need to see it, name it, and let it pass like a cloud drifting across the sky. Because you are not the storm. You are the one standing still in the center of it, unshaken. 6. Train your mind like a muscle. Endurance thinking. You weren't made to stay soft. You were made to grow through pressure, sharpen through resistance, and earn strength the hard way. But most men today confuse comfort with peace and ease with success. They avoid pain like it's poison. They retreat at the first sign of discomfort. And that's why they stay stuck. Because growth never happens in the warm, familiar corners of your life. Growth lives in the cold, hard places you keep avoiding. Your mind is no different than your body. If you want it to be stronger, you have to train it. Not once, not when it's convenient, but every day, especially when it hurts. You don't build resilience by reading quotes. You build it by showing up when your motivation is gone, when your confidence is cracked, when everything inside you says stop. That's where mental muscle forms. That's where endurance is born. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Seneca didn't write about adversity from a library. He wrote it from exile. Epictetus didn't theorize about hardship. He lived as a slave. Marcus Aurelius didn't train in peace. He ruled in chaos. They didn't beg for ease. They welcomed friction because they knew the soul, just like steel, grows harder when hammered. So the next time life feels heavy, stop asking why it's happening and start using it as training. Picture a man in the gym. It's the last set. His muscles are shaking. His brain says quit. But that moment, right there, that's when the growth happens. Not in the warm-up, not in the first few reps, but when it starts to burn and you push through anyway. Your mind works the same way. Every time you endure what you used to avoid, you raise your threshold. Every time you stay calm in the chaos, your wiring changes. Not because it's easy, but because you refuse to collapse. Endurance thinking isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. You'll do reps in silence. You'll get stronger in the dark. You'll have to fight the part of you that wants the shortcut, the excuse, the escape. But if you're serious about rewiring your mind, this is the price. It's not paid once, it's paid daily. Start with the small things. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you started. Hold your tongue when anger rises. Sit still when the urge to distract hits. Push through one more set, one more hour, one more tough conversation. These moments don't seem like much, but they stack. They shape a man who doesn't flinch under fire. A man who doesn't beg for easier roads. A man who gets up and walks through the storm with his head held high. You want to be unshakable? Then stop waiting for life to be easy. Train in the winter. Embrace the friction. Build the kind of mindset that doesn't crumble. It adapts, endures, and overcomes. Because a man with mental endurance doesn't just survive, he rises. 7. Use the view from above, perspective shift. When you're in it, when the pressure builds, the noise gets loud, and everything feels personal, your world shrinks. One email ruins your morning. One disrespectful comment ruins your day. One unexpected failure convinces you that you're not cut out for this. It happens because you're standing too close. You're gripping the problem so tightly that you can't see past it. And when your mind zooms in that far, it starts lying. It says, this is everything. This is permanent. This is who you are. But it's not. It's just proximity. What you need in that moment isn't more motivation. What you need is elevation. The Stoics called it the view from above. Marcus Aurelius used it as a daily tool, not to escape life, but to understand it better. He would imagine rising above the earth, seeing himself not as an emperor, not as a man with titles and burdens, but as a soul, brief and passing, on a planet spinning through cold space. It sounds poetic, but it was practical. Because it broke the illusion that every issue was urgent, that every slight was a war, and that every failure would last forever. Imagine you're in the middle of traffic and someone cuts you off. Your first instinct is anger. You grip the wheel, muttering curses under your breath. But then something shifts. You pull back. Not just physically, but mentally. You see the city, the cars, the buildings. You see how small your car is, how small that moment is, how little it will matter an hour from now, let alone a year. Suddenly, you're not angry. You're awake. That's the power of perspective. It doesn't change the moment, it changes you inside the moment. But most men don't do this. They live in a tunnel, ruled by urgency, devoured by their own emotions. They mistake closeness for importance. They never zoom out, and that's why they drown in problems that were never meant to be storms. The Stoic man, though, he trains himself to rise, to zoom out and see the battlefield for what it is. Terrain, not destiny. Temporary, not eternal. So how do you practice this? You step back. Every time life tries to pull you in, you pause when your mind starts shrinking. You ask yourself, how big is this really? Will this matter next week, next year, at the end of my life? And then you imagine yourself from the sky, your home, your job, your stress, all shrinking beneath you. You rise higher until the noise turns silent, until you remember that your life is more than this one painful frame. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because when you see your problems as temporary, you stop giving them power. You stop making them personal. And that shift doesn't just bring peace, it brings control. You become the man who isn't pulled under by every wave, because he's already flying above the sea. The man who leads with perspective, not panic. And that kind of man doesn't just survive, he sees clearly, and he decides wisely. 8. Live each day with memento mori in mind. You live like you have time. That's the trap. You wake up thinking you'll get another shot, another week, another year to fix what you've avoided, to become the man you keep postponing. But the truth is, you don't know how many pages are left in your story. And the worst part is, you act like it doesn't matter. You waste your energy on meaningless arguments. You scroll for hours, looking for something to distract you from your own reflection. You avoid the work, you avoid the silence, and slowly, without even noticing, you run out of life. Memento mori means remember, you will die. It's not a curse, it's not morbid. It's a tool, a blade that cuts through distraction. The Stoics didn't fear death, they used it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that every moment wasted was a moment stolen from his own potential. Seneca wrote that it's not that life is short, it's that we waste most of it. You want clarity? You want to defeat negative thoughts? Start here. Remember that the clock is always ticking, and you don't get a refund on the hours you lose to fear, doubt, or regret. Imagine you've been given $1 million, but you don't know how much you've already spent. You might have thousands left, or 10 cents. Would you keep wasting it on things that bring you nothing? That's how most men live with their time. Reckless, entitled, numb. Memento mori wakes you up. It says, stop pretending. It says, write the email, mend the relationship, take the risk, make the hard choice. Now, not someday. Because someday isn't promised. But most people avoid thinking about death. They treat it like a shadow they can outrun. They fill their lives with noise so they don't have to face the silence. But the Stoic doesn't run from it. He walks beside it. He lets it sharpen his discipline, his focus, his gratitude. Because when you know that every morning might be your last, you stop wasting your life trying to win arguments, please everyone, or replay the same story that never served you. So here's what to do. Don't wait for a diagnosis. Don't wait for a funeral to wake you up. When you wake up tomorrow, say to yourself, I may not get this day again, so I'll show up like it matters. And when someone frustrates you, pause and ask, if this were my last conversation with them, is this how I want to end it? And when your fear says wait, you say no. You move, you act, you speak. Because hesitation is the cousin of regret, and regret is for men who lived without urgency. Memento mori doesn't make you fearful, it makes you focused. It puts weight behind your words, fire beneath your steps, and clarity into every choice. And if you live with that awareness, not once, but daily, then you don't just defeat negative thoughts, you bury them. Because a man who remembers death is the only one truly awake. The battle to rewire your mind and defeat negative thoughts isn't won in a single moment. It's won in the quiet, daily choices you make when no one is watching. You've walked through the fire of reflection today. You've faced truths that most men spend a lifetime avoiding. But knowing isn't enough. If you want change, you have to live these truths. You have to practice them like a craftsman sharpens his blade. Slow, precise, and every day. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer, the one with the power to shape meaning. When fear knocks, you pause. When anger rises, you breathe. When doubt speaks, you don't obey, you examine. You learn to reframe the story, to speak to yourself like a man who is building, not breaking. You stop wasting your strength on what you cannot control, and instead, you take command of what is yours, your responses, your discipline, your actions. From above, your problems shrink. Through endurance, your mind hardens. With awareness of death, your choices sharpen. This is what Stoic wisdom gives you, not theory but tools, not comfort but strength. And strength is what you need, now more than ever. So start small, but start today. Apply one principle before the day ends. Catch one thought. Reframe one doubt. Let that become your anchor. Because you don't need to change everything at once. You just need to prove to yourself that you can begin. And when you do, tell us your story. Share the shift, the moment you turned inward and saw clarity. Leave it in the comments below, not to impress, but to remind another man that he's not alone on this path. Your words may be the reason someone else finally starts training their mind. Let's rise together. Quietly, powerfully, consistently.